Hello, I'm Richard Bruce, a resident of Los Angeles, and I thank you for checking out the footage on this DVD, which is meant to be run on a computer. And I compiled this basically out of the best of the footage that I have that proves that non-humans are living among us. And I call them aliens, but I believe that that term may cover essentially interdimensional beings and or devils or demons, reptilian beings, whatever you want to call them. But I think aliens is still a correct terminology, so for those Christians who say that I am calling them aliens and when I should be calling them devils or demons, all I can say is that I still feel that the word aliens applies, and I will also say that I do not know exactly what they are. In fact, really, I don't know very much, except that we have apparently non-humans living among us. And what I do know for sure is that a normal human being, at least, will not show the effects that I show in the footage that I have been able to obtain almost exclusively from shooting my television screen with a simple consumer grade video camera. So what you're about to see is what I think is the most compelling evidence that there are non-humans living among us, and this footage varies from television news to movies and other sources, but mostly just television and movies, and what I was able to get from certain sites that showed this shape-shifting, in particular the site Frequency Fence, which is where I learned most of what I know now and was the first credible, logical, rational, scientific type analysis of the shape-shifting phenomena that I had seen, and caused me to investigate my first major piece of evidence that was not from television, the movie The Matrix, starring Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne. And when I checked this movie out, after seeing this Frequency Fence presentation on how the people in it were not human beings, I confirmed that this was true. And it's still so amazing that I realize if many of you listening to me think that I have gone crazy to say that the people in the movie The Matrix, the actors and actresses, are actually not human beings. Now, before you decide this, take a look at the evidence, of course, but realize this: many people that have seen my evidence on this deny it without even checking out the movie themselves. And Frequency Fence recommended getting the Blu-ray, which I did because it has the best resolution. And what a lot of people have commented that I would like to address about when they see some of these shape-shifting effects is that it is not shape-shifting, it is some sort of camera anomaly, some sort of blur, some sort of problem, and I am mistaking little codec errors or other film anomalies for being shape-shifting reptilians, when in fact it's just camera anomaly of some kind and an overactive imagination. Okay, first of all, let me be real clear about this. I know that these effects are paranormal in nature. They are not a mistake. I know what I'm talking about. And you who tell me that I am wrong, you yourself are wrong, because you have not looked carefully. I know for a fact that these effects show non-human beings. I have proved beyond reasonable doubt, and beyond any person's ability to disprove it, that the persons of Keanu Reeves, Harrison Ford, and Barack Obama are certainly not human beings Period. You cannot disprove it. The thousands of people who have watched the videos at my channel and who disagree with me and think I'm crazy cannot upload one single minute of footage showing how that you could repeat these effects using a human being. Clearly, if you use common sense and you look at the footage and you realize that I am not such a video expert genius that I could recreate these effects using some sort of software to manipulate the image, you will see also that these cannot be human beings. My story is simply this. I discovered this about 1 year and 4 months ago when I was casually searching for UFO footage on YouTube. And I did have some belief that there must be something else going on in our government, because what I finally realized about the UFO cover-up, for all of you who have looked into this, and I'll just really recap it real quick so that you can realize if you don't know anything about ufology, which is that the government and the news made an obvious lie about Roswell, and Roswell is the most well-known incident, in which they said at first that a flying saucer had been shot down, then the next day they said, oh no, it wasn't a flying saucer, it was a weather balloon, and they have been lying to us ever since, and there's so much evidence showing that in fact it was an alien craft, and they covered it up and didn't tell us. And plus there's a huge amount of footage, video footage, which, if you know how hard it is to fake a so-called flying saucer or unidentified flying object in certain instances, you know that some of it must be genuine, and therefore we have at very least non-human made craft of some kind visiting Earth. And the fact of the matter is our governments have not been honest to us about it, at least the American governments, although I've heard that some other governments, Peru and other South American governments and Russia and some other countries have been honest with their citizens to some extent about what's going on. But America has kept a tight lid on everything. The official line is they don't say whether they have or whether they haven't. They just flat out won't talk about it. And this itself, if you just think about it for a minute, because this is a really important point to understand this whole thing about the UFO cover-up and its importance to this whole aliens among us thing, is that the two main excuses they use, and that I have understood to be the case as to why they don't divulge the obvious fact that we have extraterrestrials visiting us here, is A, the public will panic because it will upset the whole religious belief system. Oh yeah, that's a big enough reason to keep the fact from the rest of humanity that we are not alone in the universe. Give me a break. And the other more plausible reason, in my opinion, is that we don't want our enemies, for instance the Russians or the Chinese, to get our alien technology, and the only way to really keep a lid on our technology so that we don't lose the advantage is to not speak at all to the public about it. But if you think about it, even that excuse just is not worthwhile. It does not add up to being worth it to keep from your fellow man the most important news that man could ever hear. We are not alone in the universe. And after my research, I have come to the conclusion that the people that are saying that most other planets, and there are tons of them, endless amount of sentient life out there, most other planets have aliens from other planets coming and going, just like our country, America, has aliens from other countries coming and going. And just as we have all different colors of humans coming here from all different countries around the world, most other planets, my understanding is, have aliens from all over the cosmos coming and going and sharing technologies and various things. And we have little small ones that are 1 foot high, and you have giant ones that are 2 stories high, and ones with multiple arms and all kinds of stuff. They tend to be mostly humanoid in form, or that is bipedal, but a ton of sentient life out there. But why is our Earth and why are our people being lied to about this whole amazing phenomena? Well, I believe that basically people like David Icke in his earlier work basically have it right, that we are under lockdown by a race of reptilian beings that are either extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial, and or are remnants of fallen angels, demons or devils, whatever, coming up from hell. But the fact of the matter is that these reptilian beings have a way of living among us using something called shape-shifting, which, after my research and extensive study of the footage, I believe is a solid-to-solid transformation. However, I could be completely wrong. David Icke seems to think that it's a sort of a hologram type of thing where our eyes determine a certain frequency and that's why we see what we see, and they have advanced technology which can manipulate that. But according to Arizona Wilder, the people at the ceremonies that transform from human into giant reptiles and start feasting on human flesh, they wear robes because they're going to transform from their 5 to 6 foot human to 7 to 9 foot tall reptilian. And this would mean a physical to physical transformation. And I think that that is the case of what's happening, even though this is so far beyond our experience that it takes a long time to wrap your head around. So what I have done with my research and with my work of trying to get the best, most convincing shape-shifting footage is to show as much physical evidence that this is occurring in the most convincing way. And when I say that this is hard empirical evidence, I mean that because by this fact that you cannot repeat these effects, none of them, and have a comparison side by side that any group of intelligent, reasonable, observant people would say is the same thing. In other words, if you tried to repeat this by showing that it was a camera effect of some kind, showing that it was a video codec error of some kind, showing that it was a blur, whatever, and then try to hold it up side by side to the anomalies that you'll see here on this disc, and have reasonable people say that, oh, that could be the same thing. Furthermore, common sense will tell you, just looking at it, that these lumps in people's flesh, these claws complete with talons, the curved talons that you can see that are even the color of a lizard or bird talon, and the shapes are discernible, and the horns popping out of people's heads, you can see it, you can see the rest of the shape of the face, and common sense will tell you that there is definitely something going on. And the whole story of shape-shifting told by David Icke, Arizona Wilder, and many others is actually true. These beings do actually shape-shift, and the video footage proves it. So another thing that I wanted to say about this whole thing is that the people, I believe, like Peggy Kane, Rick Keefe, and Alex Collier, and David Icke most notably, in his earlier work, although I believe that in the meantime he's been taken over by a demon and that's not him anymore. And many people have proven this, and you can see the reptilian eyes, so he's been taken over by the very creatures that he wrote and spoke of, and that's no longer him. And that what he'll do now is gradually turn people away from the reptilian subject, because now they control him. And that's what they do, and you can read about that if you Google Susan Reed, the Body Snatchers. She talks a lot about this, and this is one of their tactics. They can take people over, and they do this all the time. And I need to mention here that I believe that they can do this to anyone, and they can even kill anyone who they believe is a threat to their whole human cattle ranch operation, which my theory is that we are in fact cattle to these creatures. They eat humans That's the reason they're covering this all up. They don't want aliens coming here and telling us that we are food and slaves to an ancient reptilian race of beings, which may also be descendants of fallen angels and children of a certain reptile man called Satan. However, once again, also, I would say, do not be simple in your thinking, because we may have a confluence of events. There may be reptilian beings out there in the universe which don't have anything to do with Satan, or fallen angels, or demons, or devils. For instance, we have reptilian beings on this planet, non-sentient, snakes, lizards, horny toads, whatever. And are they directly related to Satan just because their life form happens to be reptilian? I don't think so. I think that it's certainly possible that we have a confluence of events, that there are reptilian sentient beings out there that may not be related to Satan. They may have been recruited by Satan, whatever. But I know one thing, I agree with the general consensus that evil forces that are eating us are in charge of this planet, and the leading race are the reptilians, but there are other races working among them, most notably the Zeta Greys. There's also canine type aliens, and I mean like werewolves, sentient werewolves, feline type aliens, and also their main partner in crime are the mantis aliens, which are described by Simon Parkes. I have his video at my YouTube channel, which you can check out. It's really quite interesting that the reptilians and the mantis beings, mantis insectoids, rather arachnoids, are working with them, and these are real sentient beings with high tech, and they have some kind of big operation going on because they're cloning, they're abducting. It's a huge operation. Simon Parkes talks about how it runs minute by minute scheduling of abducting, doing whatever medical stuff they need to do on their clones or their hybrids or whatever it is that they're trying to do. And so it's a big operation, and we're all in the middle of it here. But as a Christian, I tend to think that it's all part of Satan's plan, what they're doing. But again, I keep an open mind. We don't know what this is. We don't know what they are, and until we do, let's not get caught up on who and what they are. We as humans have a right to know that there are non-humans living among us, okay? This is the main point. Let's get that uncovered first. And I was just talking about this to some people today, about what do we do to uncover their mask. How do we find out whether they're human or not? And there's one method that I heard about. They can't hold their shape when you put live blood under them, but that's kind of tough. There's someone else who talks about sound. Great. Can somebody develop a sound device that can unravel their cloaking or whatever it is that they use to shapeshift into human form? But one way that I know that I have been using myself is by doing a video test, and most specifically an indoor far shot video test. In other words, with a far distance between the camera lens and the subject, and a simple 10 minutes of video, I believe, will expose non-humans, because you can slow it down frame by frame and you'll see the shape-shifting, the claws, the strange anomalies in the teeth, the strange anomalies in the eyes, and so forth. I'm not positive it would work every time, but it's a place to start, because there's all kinds of problems with having non-humans among us, and we don't know who or what they are doing or what they are up to. For instance, I am responsible that Barack Obama is president of the United States, and I discovered, quite by accident, that he is not a human being. He is one of these reptilian shapeshifters. Whatever it is, it's not human. It's abnormal. There's something definitely wrong with it, and you can see it. Most specifically, I found out about Barack Obama, who I wasn't even thinking about. I wasn't thinking about checking to see if he was human or not. I discovered it quite by accident looking for some other shape-shifting footage, and the now world-famous Clearhand footage is the footage I'm talking about, where I first discovered this about Barack Obama. The footage of his hand clear in front of him It's not the teleprompter. I proved that. This transparency in his hand, in front of his face, has not been seen anywhere in the history of video. I challenge anybody to search the entire archives of video since man has created video to see whether you can find this transparency or not. And I think it's very clear that this is not a normal person, and I believe that this transparency is actually the legendary transparency in a mirror that vampires show. And I think that the whole vampire legend is actually built upon people's eyewitnesses of people showing transparency in mirrors, which these interdimensional beings or whatever it is they are have a problem with. Their bodies are semi-transparent in an image, which can either be from a camera or a mirror. And people probably saw this in ancient times. They were transparent in mirrors. And all the things about vampires match up. They crave blood. According to Arizona Wilder, they need the blood in order to maintain their reptilian form. And they prefer children. And they torture the children to get the utmost terror and the adrenaline in the blood, which is another drug that they need in the blood. And so these are extremely cursed creatures, and I happen to think that they are the cursed beasts of the Bible. And it says that the serpents are the most cursed of all the beasts of the field. And the field is, I believe, a terminology for the universe, or the cosmos, whatever you want to call it. But essentially, they're still aliens, but they live here among us for whatever reason, and I believe that they are part of this whole Illuminati agenda, and they look down on humans, according to Peggy Kane. And that's another very interesting video. I recommend watching it several times. The original Peggy Kane video, and also the Alex Collier video, 1994 video, and the interview with Arizona Wilder with David Icke called Revelations of a Mother Goddess. Those are the three most important videos that you should watch to be educated on this subject. The next important topic that I want to bring up about this whole reptilian shape-shifting thing and the footage that's on this disc is something that I described in my movie The Dragons of Blade Runner in the introduction to the movie, in which I explain how that when I first started uploading reptilian shapeshifter movies to YouTube, my house was immediately buzzed by helicopters. I mean, surrounded by helicopters, which I didn't even realize at the time had to do with the movie that I was uploading. But within about 15 minutes of uploading my first reptilian full report movie called Reptilian Matrix Message, about a year and 4 months ago, I noticed a loud buzzing outside my house, and I looked out the window and there were about 7 helicopters. And since then they have continuously, up till this day, buzzed me continually with aircraft. And this, I realize, sounds like total paranoia, and you say, well, aren't you just imagining it because you became worried about all this and your imagination ran wild and you see airplanes flying over your house? Well, let me just be real clear, okay? I'm not crazy. I am self-critical, and I looked at it and I said, is this just my imagination? Is this, have I taken this too far in my mind or something? Let me tell you something. There is zero doubt that this happened, and you would know it if you were in my shoes. And I know that you're not in my shoes, you haven't seen this firsthand, and I would be skeptical as well. But let me tell you something. I mean, I pissed these things off. I mean, this whole reptilian shape-shifting thing uploading, I mean, boom. When I did this, I mean, I pissed off the LAPD, the Los Angeles Police Department. I mean, they were buzzing my house with helicopters. 4 LAPD showed up at my door, and it's important again to tell you that I have no priors. I am a lawful citizen. I do not have any criminal record, and I'm not involved with any suspicious activity or persons whatsoever, and they all know it. All these reptilian police, as I call them, and but they harassed me also by following me in police squad cars, lighting up their sirens and horns behind me, pulling somebody over, or zooming around me and stuff, and for which I installed a dash camera, and when I got some good evidence I uploaded it, and I called that movie Your Taxes for My Reptilian LAPD Escort, and so I uploaded that, and when I did, most of that harassment stopped, but they still continue to harass me with helicopters, with these little white airplanes all the time, and you think, wait a minute, aren't you just imagining every airplane? No. They use these little white airplanes all the frickin' time, and they fly right over my head whenever I'm leaving somewhere. I also, in the Dragons of Blade Runner, you'll see these little spy orbs. They're something like this big, but they're little metal objects of some kind, which you can't see with the naked eye. They show up on film later, and you can see that these things are flying around. I don't know exactly what they are, but they are some kind of UFO invisibility tech, which is illegal for them to use. It's also, of course, illegal for them to use government vehicles to harass somebody that they know perfectly well is a lawful citizen. And so this is major. I mean, this is the weirdest thing that I've ever had happen to me. I'll say that again because it really is. I mean, I've never had anything like this happen to me, where all of a sudden the police are following me around. They're buzzing my house with helicopters. They did night raids where it sounds like the helicopter is like right above my apartment. This chop, 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 and everybody woke up. It was so loud, and there was some sort of thing that they were shooting at me because I would get these massive spasms in my legs, and it scared the hell out of me. And I was praying about it, and because I was really scared. And also they in these flybys, and these flybys or buzzes, by the way, they start out where you hear this noise in the distance, and then it goes out, and then they go right over my apartment with loud noise and vibration, and it's intimidating. And I realize that that's their whole MO, that they're all about intimidation. So they wanted to intimidate me and to give me an unspoken message to not do this. And by the way, when the 4 LAPD showed up at my door, I've never had LAPD show up at my door, and I didn't call them for a noise that somebody was making or something like that. But these people, these LAPD officers, I knew there was something wrong with them. There was something different about them. And by the way, I have LAPD in my family, and I'm not against LAPD, never have been. I've always been supportive of police, and I, to a large extent, still am, except I know that there's something corrupt going on now with at least some of them, and I think that they also must have control over the department, otherwise they couldn't get away with doing what they're doing. So they must have some control, but I don't think necessarily all the LAPD know about this. I think that they compartmentalize information, and they're certainly not going to tell the humans on the force that they're all a bunch of reptilians. Although I've also theorized that you may not even be able to get on the LAPD unless you're a reptilian, but that could also be tough, as a lot of people apply, and so that might be hard to cover up. So I think it's a mix of humans and reptilians, but I don't know. And what I do know is that there's obvious, zero doubt about it, suspicious illegal activity going on. And this in reaction to the reptilian shapeshifter movies that I was uploading to YouTube. So if you think that there was no other component to this besides just the fact of the paranormal footage, this other thing with this harassment was huge, and it continues to this day. And I've heard some other people talk about it too, the little white airplanes, the helicopters, the spy helicopters, the orbs, all that kind of stuff. This is all alien tech that they're using against us. So let me elaborate a little bit further on this whole situation as I have considered it. Again, I like to keep an open mind. Don't know exactly what's going on or what exactly is going to happen, but I think as I've thought about this, it looks to me like the most important thing about this is that what are you going to do about God? That's what it seems to me is the most important thing, because what I think the real main underlying story is that whether they're aliens, whether they're demons, whether it's both, whatever it is, humans by themselves are no match for them. They have invisibility technology, they have UFO technology, they're probably, according to the witnesses, they're much stronger and faster and smarter than humans. According to Peggy Kane, they look down on humans. We're like retarded cattle. The fact of the matter is, no human without something special, extraordinary, has a chance against them. As I believe David Icke proves, the fact that he got taken over, and he was a steadfast exposer of the reptilian phenomena, a great speaker and writer, but he got body snatched. And what I would tell anybody who really wants to join the fight against these creatures, I'd be very sure and warn you that I believe that they also tried to kill me at least 3 times, but one in particular, with the actor Paul Walker. You may have heard about it, that he died in a fiery car wreck crashing into the only gas line in the area. Now, I want to make very clear, I don't know this for sure. I'm only going by what my spirit told me, the discernment, which is that they were on their way to eat me. And I mean, eat my flesh, to consume my flesh, and God caused them to stumble, as the Psalm says, which means that God caused them to crash and burn, literally burn alive. And the pictures showing Paul Walker partially burned were a deception. That was I think that's one of the reasons why they also control the fire department. They want to get on the scene in case a reptilian burns up in a fire. They want to be sure and clean up the mess before anybody sees the reptilian carcass. But again, I'm just speculating. But I will say this, I would definitely warn people that if you're going to fight these reptilians, just like in a vampire movie, but I mean this is real, folks, this is deadly serious, you better have the Spirit of Christ, because they would have killed me by now. I'm really quite sure of it. I mean, if I didn't have the Spirit of Christ, if I wasn't under the protection of God, if these reptilian creatures that are sentient, they're intelligent, they plan, they're patient, and they're very cautious, but they're also very murderous. They know now, after the death of Paul Walker and some other reptilians that they sent to kill me, that I am under divine protection, and that is why that they cannot do anything further to me. They cannot send a body snatcher after me. They can do other things against me. They can do all kinds of stuff, but they can't directly come against me, because they know that they'll be immediately killed, because I'm under protection. I believe that an angel protected me, and I'm under heavy guard, because they now know that these reptilians now are going to take any chance they can to get to me. So I would warn anybody who is thinking of fighting these reptilians, thinking of exposing them, thinking of making Organite, thinking of uploading Shapeshifter movies, thinking of writing books, thinking of, freeing our world from these evil beasts, which, I mean, we got to do something about this, folks. I mean, we're being eaten, we're being enslaved, and they're tricking everybody. They're, this thing about, first of all, you don't know who your politicians are that you're voting for. And I mean, if you follow sports, I mean, think of the problem of these beasts in sports. They have an unfair advantage. They're much stronger, they're much faster and everything. And there's pictures showing that there are non-humans in sports. So, this is a problem that humans can't ignore anymore. I mean, the main thing is, like Alex Collier and Peggy Kane and David Icke and many others witness, and Arizona Wilder witness, is that they're eating our children by the thousands. Okay, now whatever you think about this situation, whatever your opinion is about it, we've got to stand up as a race, and I think the only way to stand up as a race is to stand with the Lord, because I believe that it's completely non-inclusive for me to tell you that God has created these evil beasts that eat people. He has created this whole situation. Why? Why so terrible a situation? This is horrible. Children being eaten. You know what it's... Can you imagine what it's like for a child to be confronted with these clawed, huge teeth reptilian beasts that are threatening to kill you, and then they finally do, and they rip you open and eat your flesh and drink your blood while you're still alive? I mean, this is horrible. This is beyond imagining. And then they do this to adults too. It's not just children. So this is going on a continual basis. And yet, God has created this. Why? Well, I believe that God is a just God, and He is righteous. And in order for something this horrific to go on, it must mean that there's something even more horrific that this is addressing. And I believe it is, because the problem of sin, the problem of lawlessness, the problem of denying your Maker and the leadership of God who created the earth and everything in it, is so severe that there has to be something, a mechanism by which souls will be determined what they will do, and there has to be a whole system behind this. And I'm not saying I understand it. I'm not saying I understand how it works. I'm just saying that given the facts of what I know, and given that I believe that the Holy Bible, if you study it carefully, is not a fraud, a forgery, neither has it been tainted by man. If you can make a planet, you can write a book. I'll say it again. You know, if a car manufacturer can put out a manual saying everything that they want to say and nothing they don't, how much more can somebody who makes a planet get a message to his people and the people of Earth for them to properly decide whether or not they're going to follow the things of God or not and come to God or not. So I would urge all of you, if you haven't done this, make a prayer to God. Ask Jesus to come into your life. Jesus is the mediator between God and man. He is the sacrifice and the blood of the covenant, which is available to any person, man or beast. The Bible makes clear. You do not even have to be a human being. The Bible makes clear. If you can understand language, if you can read, and you can make a conscious choice, God will hear your prayer. The eyes of the Lord are in every place. He will hear you. Make a prayer to God. Just simply ask Him to come into your life, just in your own way, in your own time. God will know when you've made a decision to make a prayer. And a prayer is just a speaking out. And do so properly by getting on your knees, because you need to show God that you're going to submit yourself to Him. You're going to submit yourself to His will. And by the way, you can think of God as a man. He is a man. He's God, but he's also still a man, and He's a king. And in order to be a subject of the king, you need to show that you're going to obey. You're going to show that you've heard the story of how Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sin, that God has created this situation where He sent His Son to die, and this is a sacrifice. And once again, I'm not saying that I understand how it works, but I know that I have witnessed God in my life, and I know for sure that He's real. Well, at least that's my saying, because I've felt His presence, and I've felt the things that He's done in my life, and His messages and His punishments, most notably, is how I've felt Him in my life. It's called chastening, and that's His way, and it's not a wrong way. We just don't understand it. It's so mysterious, and many times we find ourselves resenting God, but don't. Because if you read carefully His Word, you'll see it's a very potent, very powerful, very precise instructions that are mysterious in one aspect, but also very sure in another. And the Spirit will lead you as you submit yourself to God through Jesus Christ in a simple prayer. Just say to God, Lord, I want You in my life. I heard that You died on the cross for my sin. I don't want to go to hell. I want to be a friend of God, and I'm willing to submit myself to God through the name of Your Son, Jesus Christ. Please come into my life. Just make that a statement along those lines in your own way if you want. Get the Bible, read it carefully, make your own prayers, and don't be afraid to get on your knees and pray. I was afraid to do that for a long time. I haven't prayed as much as I should, but I can tell you that in my experience, this is what God wants us to do, even if we're unsure about what we're doing, even if sometimes we give up in the middle of a prayer, not sure whether God is listening or not, if we sin, if we say evil things, if we do evil things. What matters is ultimately that you come to God, you submit yourself to God, and depart from the sin of the world by coming to God and asking Him into your life. And you will receive instruction, you will receive chastening, but more and more through faith you will begin to discern God's messages in your life, and you will see that it's not your imagination, it's not just wishful thinking, it's not a bunch of hokey nuts believing in something that isn't true, although I do believe that there's many people, many Christians who make fools out of themselves and are closed-minded and are very distasteful to do business with, and I don't like that, and I think it's a bloody shame, but I think these are tares. This is Satan's tares to discredit the religion of Christianity, and by the way, which I think also are all the physical churches. I don't believe in any of the physical churches. I think they all belong to Satan. The true Christian is somebody who realizes God's word is true and lives by it and will be without in this time. I don't think it was always like that. Paul said, don't forsake the gathering, but I don't believe that necessarily applies to this end time. That's my personal opinion. But for all of you who are thinking of fighting these evil beasts, which, whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe it's devils or whether you believe it's angels or whether you're a Muslim and you think it's jinn, whatever it is, we got to do something. I mean, that's the bottom line. And so I'm giving you my opinion about the best way to go about it. I would urge you to come to God. Why not try it if you haven't tried it? If you haven't tried coming to God through Jesus Christ and having His Word revealed to you. Because I was a atheist and a secularist most of my life, and I thought all the people that believed in God and all that stuff were brainwashed. In fact, they even gave me a Bible when they threw me in the brig when I was in the Navy, and at the time I thought it was total BS, and later I realized that it was just because I wasn't ready for God to come into my life, and it was only when I was in a desperate, homeless situation that I was ready to receive the message, and I got that message through a pamphlet, and I read it, and it was a message about submitting yourself to God through Jesus Christ, and when I did that, my eyes were opened, and I realized finally that the Bible was true, and that it just seemed like a story at first. And even, it's not a matter of intelligence, it's a matter of when God reveals it to you. And when He does, then you'll see that the magic, you'll see that it's true, what the Bible is saying, that these amazing things, and the most amazing trick that Satan has pulled off is to convince you that He doesn't exist. He is out there just like God, and it is the default spirit that we all receive. It is the default alignment that we have born into this world, wanting to enjoy this world. And as I've said in other videos, I mean, I am not going to deny that I am someone who loved this life, loved this world, all of the sins, the pleasures, everything about it. I've always loved it. I've always done it. Even while a Christian, I pleasured myself in sinful ways that I knew I probably shouldn't do. But more and more as I've matured, I've realized that this whole thing is about giving up your own personal pleasures momentarily to receive something better. God's Word says, and I'll be clear again, in God's message is a promise that for those who will be friends with Him, for those who will come away from sin and deny yourself and take up your cross and follow the Lord Jesus, be a disciple, learn from Him, learn from His words, which His words, by the way, are the entire Bible, not just the New Testament. If you will do that, God's Word clearly says, and I'll say it very clearly here, you will live as a man or a woman in the world with a perfect body that does not age, does not feel pain, neither will you feel sorrow, and neither will you die. So get this, no pain, no sorrow, no death. Okay? That is the promise of God for those who will be friends with Him. So let me ask you, is this short life worth continuing to live in sin and unholiness? Or is it worth it to give God a chance? That's what I'm going to do, folks. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know everything that's going to happen. I'm living by faith. But I'm saying that through faith and through the teachings of God in my life, I have changed myself, and I have drawn closer to God in my study of His Word, and coming closer in obedience, because we all start out disobedient. Even as believers, we're still disobedient. But more and more we mature. It's called overcoming the world and growing up to the fullness of Christ. And as we do this, more and more power, more and more faith will come to us. But the main thing I would say is, don't be fooled by people who say that the Bible is tainted, there is no reward, and that giving up your life in this world is a huge waste because this is the only life you've got. No. God's Word says, "He who seeks to lose his life shall save it. He who seeks to save his life shall lose it." God is asking you to momentarily give up. See, I need to give up my own pleasures in this life because my pleasures are the default alignment with sin. God's Word teaches us that we're evil by nature. We're born into an evil nature. We can realize this consciously and then make a conscious decision to deny ourselves so that we can get a new nature, a new mindset, a new set of desires, which are not unhealthy and lead us into death and hell. In order to get that new nature and that new body that goes with it, and you will live in the world as a man or a woman, and you will live with that new nature. And if you will set aside your own personal desires for a moment, for this short life, to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow the teachings of God's only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, I would urge you to try this and to make a prayer to God, because I happen to firmly believe that I would be dead by now, having exposed the reptilians the way I did, and all this activity with these helicopters and the police showing up at my door and everything else. I mean, it's clear to me that they would have doused me by now. I would have been dust. I would have been in the bowels of a reptilian by now. So that's my 2 cents about what you should do about this. But as far as this footage goes, you're free to use it. There's no obligation to credit me. You can upload it, you can mix and match your own, but I urge you to do this yourself if you want to start busting these criminal people in charge of our government, police, and everything else, and we start busting them. Take a regular consumer grade video camera and start filming your television and analyze it in movies. I use Pinnacle as a really good frame-by-frame analysis, and then I also use PowerDirector for final assembly. And but you don't need to be a rocket scientist to do this. You can use basic stuff, and your video camera pointed at your television, in my opinion, is one of the most effective ways to do this, to start exposing this and start uploading it. And the more people that start uploading this stuff, good, credible, scientific movies, not playing a bunch of loud rock and roll and crazy psychedelic stuff that makes you look like you're on an acid trip like a lot of people do, and it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of people that know about this and are shooting their televisions and are uploading stuff, but it looks crazy to rational people. Please make rational, clear videos that rational people will stop and say, wait a minute, maybe this is something. Because it took me a long time seeing this to even believe it was true and investigate it for myself. And so imagine how many people will lose if we don't use clear, scientific, using arrows and stuff and text showing what people are looking at. If Frequency Fence didn't use arrows and text, her movies wouldn't be nearly as groundbreaking or mind-changing as they have been. So, I urge you to be scientific in your movie making, and good luck.